Hello and welcome to the Mental Funny Bone. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Christine.
We
Oh,
are not mother. We are not mental health professionals. If you need professional mental health assistance, please take a look at our show notes for some links or dial 988 on your cellular telephone, on your mobile to episode 1 of 2025.
whoop whoop. Here we
I
are.
feel I feel like we've really entered into a new phase of the podcast because we can start saying shit like, but we're recording this. Like by the time this
By the time
by
this
the time this
drops,
releases,
we will
I
be
don't,
well into the new year.
I'm, yeah. Anyway, so I think that's really fun.
All right, before we get into this, tell me how your meditation's going. It's Christmas time. Have you been doing it?
Again, I really suck if other people are in this house. This is where I need to make an effort because at the beginning, I would, even when no one owned were here, I'd go downstairs and do it. And now if they're in this house, I just don't do it. I don't know why. That's very weird. So I had a few days off, but I am using the Wake Up. Is that what it is? The Wake Up app?
Waking Up with Sam
Waking Up.
Harris?
Yes, yes. Yes, I do. I do love that app. I find it fantastic, especially the talking after. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is what we just did. Let's talk a little bit about this. So I really do like that. And I have not yet increased to 2 times a day of meditating, which I believe will be on my list of things to do in 2025.
Like when you get back into a routine. Right
Yeah.
now, it's Christmas break. It's the Wild West around here. I haven't
Mhm.
sat down to have a meal since Christmas Eve. I've just been eating ham literally by the handful.
Yeah. As you pass the refrigerator, like
Right.
just
Like I'm
sticking your
just,
hand
I,
into the ham bag in the refrigerator and like stuffing it in your face. I stopped for 5 seconds and was like, hey, do we have some horseradish? Nope, we don't. All right. I'll
nope. All
just take the
right.
big
I'll see a
fistful
plane.
of ham I got.
It's amazing. I ate, I think maybe 4 times yesterday, like 4 separate times. I got all the containers out and made a plate. The last one being just a plate of cookies at
Mm.
10:30 last night because I
Sounds
needed that.
delicious.
So
I
good.
did mention you yesterday at Christmas dinner. My brother in law made filet and prime rib, and they were fucking unreal. Like he got this new no, not toaster, but is a smoker thing.
So,
And we also had Brussels sprouts and scalloped potatoes, all smoked. Everything was smoked. It was so freaking delicious. And as we were eating, I was like, we need to take a video and send this to my sister to show her what we're eating while she's eating cold fucking ham. But we didn't.
it was
It was
nice.
very nice. I had a very good time. I like the games that we played. We might need to work on our competitiveness. I feel like as
We're
we get
fine.
older, it gets worse.
We're fine.
And there's yelling, and it's not like we were ever quiet, but it
There's also
was,
a fair amount of mocking too, which
yeah, yeah. And sometimes we have to explain what we're doing.
to outsiders who didn't grow up playing Monopoly with your
Right.
father. Yeah, we had game nights when we were little. Your dad would play Monopoly with us and just whoop our asses.
And make us feel bad about it, like on
Right,
purpose. And I feel
right.
like that has made me who I am today. One of my proudest moments in my parenthood journey was beating Owen at Monopoly. Like I have proof of it. I took pictures of it. I shared them with people and I made him feel like shit about it. He was 6.
I feel like when I go into a competitive situation, to this day, I will choose violence.
Yeah,
If it
it's
were possible to hit people during a board
mhm,
game, I would do that.
yeah.
I would do that.
Throw those little sorry pieces at them and hope it pokes
Oh,
them in the eye.
eight, skate, and
And
donate
donate.
is what our father would say while we were. I don't know the context, but it might have
Because
been
an
his.
8 didn't have any special
No,
meaning. Like it was just
no.
8. But as soon as you got an 8, eventually all of us would just at the same time 8 skate
Eight,
and
skate, and
donate.
donate. I think it goes back to his undiagnosed attention deficit problems. Thank
I don't
you,
know, but
Joe.
it drives Noah insane.
Right.
Because
And just to set the record straight, I lost. You and I
mhm,
lost to
yeah.
a team comprised of our children and David,
Mhm.
my husband.
So I am not claiming defeat. I refuse. I fucking refuse. I want to recount. We gave him too much time for that last
Right.
fucking question. He didn't know it. We should have cut him off. Daddy was real pissed off about it, and I'm not sure Daddy will come back to Christmas Eve because of it.
One of the things I admire most about David is he's not nearly as competitive as I am,
Mm-hmm.
but he recognizes the competitiveness,
Mm-hmm.
and he sees it as a weakness, and he will put his thumb on it like a bruise and keep pushing. So as soon as we lost, he like threw his hands up in the air. There was a celebration dance,
Mm-hmm.
like Icky Woods getting cold cuts in that commercial for Geico.
Mm-hmm.
It and it continued. Like
Yeah.
yesterday, I'm like, "Hey, let's play some trivia," and he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Why, loser?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want
He's
to
never
go
going to play
back?
again.
No,
Beat
this
you
is it.
that one
This is
time.
it. I will never have another chance." And he is also bringing up the last time I lost at trivia, which was when Olivia was 2.
Yeah. You need to somehow rope him into a game of Harry
Harry
Potter
Potter
Trivial
trivia.
Pursuit
Oh
because
my
I am
god.
100% certain you are the only person that will ever fucking win that game legitimately.
I can't wait. I know what I'm doing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Christmas Eve was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, I sat on the couch for literally 18 hours. I
Yeah,
found a
yesterday was
seat
nice.
for
Yesterday was
present
nice.
opening and did not move.
Yeah.
Not a I got up to get plates of food and that was it. I didn't even empty the dishwasher from Christmas Eve.
Yeah, our house is a mess. Like normally by now I have the
Ugh.
presents organized back under the tree before they
Mm-hmm.
have to be sent to rooms. Literally all of Owen's like pile of shit is just in the middle of the living room. Like we've
Right.
been stepping over it, and there's some shit on the dining room table, there's some shit on the island. There's just piles of Christmas shit everywhere. But
Right.
I can say that this year was probably one of the best. We everybody got really good gifts. Yeah.
I was telling Olivia that on Christmas Eve we would go to Nunny and Pappy's, and then we go to Grandma Carla's, and then it would be like 2 in the morning by the time we got home and got her
Hmm.
settled into bed while she was terrified, waiting for a giant elf to drop off presents. And then I would start wrapping.
Yeah, that's you.
I wouldn't finish
Yeah.
until 15 minutes before she woke up. And then I
Good
would cook all
Lord.
day. Like I was so filled with joy at doing this stuff though that I was
Yeah.
super happy about it. I was exhausted, and I think on Christmas Day I would cook and feed for your parents, for Carla.
Mhm.
We would get through dinner, I would clean up, and then I would pass out until I was like a bear. I
Until
would pass
January.
out until New Year's when I had to put all the decorations away.
Yeah.
I would just hibernate until then, eat cheese and play games with Olivia until I had to put away the
Yeah.
decorations.
It makes sense. It definitely makes sense. Eh,
Yeah, and I miss it.
we normally, this is the first year we brought gifts out before Owen went to bed.
Oh,
That was like, I just came out with the stocking shit just to get the stockings ready because Noah's normally the one who gets up in the middle of the night and does all the shit. And as I was getting the stockings ready, he started carrying the shit out. And I was like, what are you doing? He's still in the bathroom. And Noah was like, I don't, why
is
can't we
he
just put him out
is he not
now?
gonna?
Is he waiting for Santa to get here? Are we putting cookies out? I don't know. What are we? And I was like, fuck. All right. Do what you want to do. Fine.
We still
Okay.
put the cookies out. I
Mm.
made myself a plate of cookies, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that's what happened. That's oh, Owen's other gift was the human dog bed.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it
Yes, and
because
it
he's jealous
is
of his brother.
it's he comes home from school and I have Macho's bed in the office here, and he will come home from school and come in to talk to me and put his head on Macho's bed because Macho's normally in there, and he'll pet Macho, and sometimes he might fall asleep in there, just his head on it. But I saw this on probably Facebook,
I
and
love
Mary
it.
was asking me for ideas on what to get him, and I was like, get him a dog bed. She was like, what?
Don't
It's like,
ask
it's a human
questions.
dog bed. Here's what it is. Here's how much it costs. I'll order it for you.
I love
So
it.
yeah, as soon as we were done with opening gifts, we got that sucker out, got it set up for him. He fell asleep in there until we had to leave for dinner. And then last night we came home, he carried it downstairs, which was my intent, is that he would have it downstairs. That's where he slept last night.
In the dog bed.
Yeah, I got up this morning and went in his room to wake him up for work, and he wasn't there. I was like, huh, what?
Hmm.
Went downstairs, and there he was in his dog bed. I might get one for myself, actually.
Amazing. Amazing.
It's the Pluffle, I think is what it's called. So check it out, folks. It's wonderful.
Ridiculous. All right. We should probably do a podcast.
Okay. All right. Let's start with fan mail. So I we're going to try to change some things up here in the new year and just focus on one fan mail for the week, but I'm already fucking shit up because I'm going to mention two because they're the only two we got. And they're from Ryan and Shauna and their husband and wife. So I
Oh,
feel like we have to mention both of them because I do believe that they've been two of our top fan mailers. It's been
yeah.
them and Kim D pretty much keeping us afloat here.
Yeah.
Here's
Just a quick point of fact that I might have forgotten. Ryan and Shauna are married to each other and they have provided some amusing stories. And also, did they try to leave bags of cookies around your house? Is that the story I
yes.
remember
Yeah.
from prior episodes?
Yeah, they didn't try. They did. Yeah, it was them and our other friends, another couple, and we traded. I don't ever remember leaving the cookies at the other couple's house though, so I think it
That's a
really they maybe just knew about it or they started it, and then we were really into it, and I don't know. But like one of the most satisfying things was Shauna came over with her son, and we went somewhere, and they had left. She left her car at our house. And Noah sent me a text because he had the keys. She gave him the keys. And he was so excited about putting the cookies in her middle console.
I love
Anyway,
it. I love
yeah.
it. Ryan and Shauna have made previous appearances in the podcast, so welcome back.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Yes. What I really like about their two emails is they share not just, hey, you guys are
Right.
doing awesome, but hey, you were talking about this. Let me tell you about what I do. And let me suggest some of this stuff. Ryan is a lover of the vitamins. We were talking about vitamin D the other day, and he is on D3. I am on D2. I don't Owen used to go to the workout place D1, so I don't.
I don't know.
And we're not playing college sports, so it has nothing to do with that. So whatever. I'll have to figure that
Yeah,
out. And Ryan also mentioned that everyone needs the D and that he gets his vitamin D from chicken. And Ryan loves the chicken.
I wish everyone could
and
see my face.
and his mom used to call it the monkey.
Oh God.
And he loves monkeys. And then Shauna would call their son Monkey.
Oh. Oh. See, parents, just take a note. Just call it a penis.
Just
Just
call
call
it
it a
peanut
vagina.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah,
dirty
that's-
word.
Or vajayjay.
It's-
That's what I would say to Liv because I still wasn't okay with saying vagina to her because she was a baby. But whatever.
It's so much better than vagina. You're right. Clearly. Carry on.
Someone said penis the other day, and I was like, why did they say, oh, the groomer or dog groomer? And I was like, oh, I wish you would have said wiener. Makes so much more sense to me.
You were like, penis?
I was like, what? Oh, it's wiener. Oh, okay.
Right.
I'm
Oh, God.
46 years old.
You're
Anyway, so the thing
But-
that Ryan taught me is the form of vitamin. So are you familiar with the methylated form of vitamins?
No. Nothing
Neither was
about
I.
vitamins or nutrition, obviously.
I still don't know a lot about the methylated form. I have written down here the definition but I'm not going to read it because
Wow.
I read it earlier to myself and was like, that still doesn't.
S-adenosylmethionine. Sammy.
It's called Sammy, and it's actually the master methylator, which is the only thing I took of that because all I could think was masturbator. That's the only, and I was like, fuck, things that sound dirty but aren't. Like, so I'll have to come back to that. I trust Ryan, and there's some studies that have been done, and it's all about gene mutations and how they prevent our body from processing certain vitamins and minerals. And this form of vitamin, it's the master methylator, and that apparently helps us.
Right.
Anyway, so that was from Ryan. He also mentioned the conscious mind, which we've talked about, and
I love it. The concept of the conscious mind is amazing.
We'll continue to discuss the conscious mind, of course, and live probiotics. I take dead probiotics?
What was the culture? that was in the yogurt?
Oh, yes.
Bifidus regularis.
Bifidus regularis. I was going to say spinus bifidus, but that's
It's
Bifidus
not.
regularis. It was my mom used to eat the Activia because her belly would hurt her. Mom, we love you. And I was reading, I just happened to read the label of the Activia.
Right.
I normally don't do that, but in this case I did, and found out that it contains Bifidus regularis. Somebody made that fucking shit
Some
right up.
marketing guy was like, what do we call it? It's got to have a scientific name. What family name can we, what genus does this biotic that we made up? What species? Oh, it's a Bifidus regularis.
It's a bifidus. It's a bifidus that makes you regular. So we'll just throw a us on the end of it.
It's like naming a goddamn dinosaur.
The fuck. Anyway,
right,
so
live probiotics, good for your belly.
Yeah, back to fan mail. We're going to switch over to Shauna now. Shauna listens to a lot of podcasts, which I appreciate and love. And she told us to check out Dr. Daniel Amen, I think it.
Yeah.
And also
whatever.
He speaks about brain health and the things that interfere with it and how it affects mental health. And he talks about ants, which this is really what I want to dig into because I definitely am overtaken by this. Ants is a huge problem that I have, and it's automatic negative thoughts. We always joke about my brain voice, but I really wish that I could record my brain voice and have everybody else listen to it every once in a while.
I don't want
you would be like, wow, are you fucked up? Like the shit I make up in my head is unreal. And now that I'm trying to be more
mindful.
Yes. And realize, wow, it's pretty fucking ridiculous. I also appreciate that Shauna said Sarah will not like him because he is very much against the weed and the booze.
Huh.
I can't say that's going to make me not like him.
It's just going to make you reject part of his theory.
It's not even that I reject it. It's like smoking cigarettes. I know it's bad. Like, I know the weed and the booze are not helping my mental health, but I continue to do them. I have committed to dry January again. I will be doing dry January, and I even have shit planned, like going out plans for January. But
I want to do dry January.
I will be doing them sober.
Yeah, I want to do dry January.
Last time I did dry January, number one, I lost a shitload of weight. Number two, I ended up doing dry January, February, and half of March until St. Patrick's Day. So maybe we'll do that again. I'm committing to dry January, though.
I'm going to do dry January. I think I don't know.
Last time I did it, I just hid. I just didn't go anywhere.
Oh, don't do that.
This time I'm going to make an effort to actually still do things and just do them dry. And I also wrote down here that I need to look up Tom Holland's non-alcoholic beer and where I can get it.
Wait, who's Tom Holland? Is he Spider-Man?
Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was an alcoholic. I haven't really looked up a lot.
How can he be an alcoholic?
He's 5. I know.
He's a child.
Yeah, so that's his. I just saw him. It was a pre-recorded episode, but it was on live, and I actually watched it months back when it was actually new.
Cool.
Yeah, but that was one of his things. He was like, I wanted to be able to partake in that, but there was nothing really that was good out there that tasted like beer, but didn't make me an idiot or an asshole. Yada. So I want to check that out and start looking into ways that maybe I'll learn how to be social without being drunk.
Love it. We'll give it a go.
So yeah. So there's that. So thanks, Ryan and Shauna. Appreciate it. My gastro story. Do you want to? I have to pull my screen down here to be able to look at my gastro story. Okay.
Oh, it's been so long since I've used my mouse, it won't even click. There we go. Oh, I've just looked at the tab.
Yeah. Out of water.
Classic gastro girl story.
The gastro girl story of the week is about our New Year's Eve 2000 Y2K. Everybody.
Y2K.
The world was just it was ending.
Can I set the stage?
We could do about it. Absolutely, go for it.
So, 1999, I was married to my first husband, Mike, and we were living in Arizona in a lovely 2-bedroom apartment. And you were living in the other bedroom, right?
Yes.
You were living there.
Yes.
So you didn't just come out to visit. Sometimes I get a little fuzzy on when you were there and when you weren't. And Mike had made friends, I think, I don't know how, I can't remember, but he had work friends
Hmm.
with this cluster of people who had been friends for a considerable amount of time.
I'm going to interrupt because my memory, it wasn't a cluster of people. He made friends with one person
Oh no,
in the
he made
cluster.
friends with one person in the cluster.
In my understanding, their friendship was they invited you guys to a Halloween party every year.
Oh,
That
I
was
don't
the
even think
extent.
I had never met him.
Yeah, yeah, that might be the case. I feel like we did go to the Halloween party prior to
Was it
this.
was Steve? So Hobbit Steve? Was this the Halloween party? I can't remember. No.
No,
Oh, so
no.
confused. Halloween
Um,
Hobbit Steve was New Year's Eve party, right?
yeah, I don't know. I think
I
Hobbit
just
Steve
can't
was a
remember.
random Wednesday night at Anderson's. I don't know.
Ew. I just
But
threw up in my mouth. Ugh.
anyway, go ahead.
So Mike makes friends with this one guy. Um, whose name I can't remember now,
No.
but they were a married couple and they had a couple of other married friends couples and they had been friends for since college. And we're like maybe 10 years. Like they had a whole history, this group of people.
Mhm.
And they had made arrangements to stay Airbnb like before that was a thing. They were staying, somebody in the group had a relative, like an aunt, who
But that
had a
relative was
house.
still in the house, but go ahead.
Right, who had a house in Vegas that was way too big. It was the now, I might be misremembering, but I feel like this was like a luxury mansion that they couldn't afford and had fallen into some disrepair. There were
Mhm.
bedrooms aplenty, and there was like an indoor pool with a room to go
I
with it.
That's vaguely what I remember as well, but I'm not really sure. I don't know if we made that up,
Like,
but anyway, go ahead.
that's the memory I have. And the group of people was made up of people from all ages and all walks of life.
Mhm.
Um, again, I knew this guy maybe from meeting him at a party
Mhm.
once. Like I'd probably
Yeah.
interacted, I'd had maybe 5 minutes of conversation. And
Yeah.
I don't know this for sure, but what I suspect happened is he was talking about it with Mike, and Mike said, "Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun." And he was like, "Yeah, you should come." And Mike said, "We would love to."
Yeah.
And this guy
Yeah.
went, "Oh my." So now we're going, me, you, and Mike. And I had been sick. I had a horrible fever, and I think I had the flu leading up to between Christmas and New Year's. So
Yeah.
I was laying on the
Yeah.
couch watching old 70s reruns on TV until the day we packed and left.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's the background.
that's
I've set the stage.
you've set the stage. This couple had a van?
Oh, they did, yeah.
I
I don't
don't
think it was their van.
maybe they borrowed it, but we drove with them.
Mm, all of
Van.
us. Yeah, we got to know each other in the van.
In the van. And then we met these other people at this house that I could not figure out who the fuck owned the house and what she was doing. She, for some reason in my head, was Mrs. Roper. I don't know
Yes,
why.
because her hair was
Um,
super curly and blonde.
yeah, like it was, I don't see, there was, okay. So we get there, we go inside. It's weird. There's like sleeping bags. The sleeping arrangement's really weird. And it's not very comfortable. Let me tell you, it's really not. I don't know exactly how it happened, but you and I ended up sleeping in the van in the
I think
driveway.
I think Mike did too. I think that was the
I don't
deal.
remember.
They were like, happy to have you. There's no place to sleep inside. So, yeah, definitely come on our pre-planned vacation that we you just invited yourself to
Yeah.
last week. There's
Yeah.
nowhere to sleep, so you guys are going to be in the van. And Mike was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds great."
Sounds good.
And
And
I don't
Vegas or
remember.
not, it was chilly. It was for us
It's
because we lived
cold
in Arizona. So it was cold. And we were sleeping in a
in a
fucking
van.
van. In a van. And as we were sleeping, trying to get to sleep the first night, you realize you have a cold sore.
I do, yeah.
The first cold
Cuz
sore ever after me living 21 years attempting to give her a cold sore. She finally developed one on her own and was extremely upset about it. We named it Steve. It
I
was
didn't
quite
even know what to
comical.
do.
Yeah, and I did nothing but fucking laugh
It was
because
awful. I'm trying
mhm,
to meet new people. I'm like, "Hey,
yeah.
how's it going?" Don't look at it. And to
Because
go along with what we're learning today, I was so afraid of what people were thinking about this cold
yeah.
sore.
And it wasn't even, for those of you, for my fellow herpes sufferers, it wasn't even that bad of a cold sore. It was like one that was in the corner that you could barely even see unless you
It
like
was right
opened
here.
your. No, it was here.
No, it was
Regardless,
here.
regardless, it wasn't up in your fucking
Oh,
nose to
no,
your
it was
eyeball.
tiny. It
So
was
yeah,
contained in
it
my
was
lip.
baby Steve is what it was. It was baby Steve.
No.
That's what it was. Anyway,
I,
so this is Las Vegas, 2000. We're going into 2000. We had some
Y2K.
crazy fucking outfits on. We had to get dressed up. I think there were silk blouses involved, some
Of course
skirts,
there
some
were.
chunky heels that, of
Mm,
course, were going to be wonderful as we're walking up and down the strip for the next 12 hours. The
right.
strip shut down. I'm going to tighten it up here, just make it pretty quick.
Right.
The strip, there were the army guys or police officers on horses all over the place. It was insane. At 11:30, they shut the doors to all the casinos if you were outside. Like they were so worried about shit, all the machines going fucking crazy at midnight. So if you were inside, if you were outside, that's the way it was. So we decided to hang out on the strip. Asses to fucking elbows. Like today, Sarah would lose her fucking mind. I was losing it then, I think.
Pretty drunk.
But the thing I very specifically remember is some guy walking towards us. He had a backpack on and he was screaming and yelling. And I think they were all great things. He was Happy New Year, was super excited. It's before midnight. And he
Mm-hmm.
was taking sips of beer and spinning it up in the air because that seemed to be okay. And I was like, wow, look at this guy. He's going to get fucking killed. And do you remember this
Sure
happening?
enough.
The guy, I think it was a guy like in front of us or a couple of people in front of us just sucker punched him right in the face and knocked him the fuck out.
It was a
What?
whole evening of horrific things happening.
Oh no, it was behind us because one of the guys we were with tried to grab his backpack and help him out. Hey, dude. And he was like, fuck you, and all belligerent. And he was like, all right, well, go ahead. And then the next group of people, somebody just flattened him. It
I mean,
was
again,
wow.
if you've ever been to Vegas, the strip, that street is like a 6-lane highway
Mhm.
with a divider in the middle. It is huge and there is no place to walk. There's no
No.
cars. They've shut it down, so we're
Yeah.
just asses to elbows, nightclub like atmosphere
Mhm.
for however many blocks the strip is. And
Yeah.
they locked you out of the casino and you had to have a key to get in. And I
Yeah.
had to pee.
Yeah. There was,
Everybody had to pee.
we were stepping in a lot of pee. There were people who were just hanging out with pee in their pants. I guarantee it.
It
And
was
then getting off
chaos.
the strip. You couldn't fucking get off the strip. And we weren't staying on the strip. Remember, we were staying at
By the
Mrs.
river.
Roper's van or driveway.
Right.
So we had to find a way to get there. And we somehow were by ourselves. Like you and I got disconnected from everyone.
It was just the two of us. I
Yeah.
don't know what
I don't
happened
know
to
where Mike
Michael.
was. It was definitely just the two of us.
And we were with like the old lady and like a young person. I might be making
Yeah.
up the young person, but
I don't
definitely
know.
somebody like we were 24. I was 24, maybe.
I was 21.
Oh, I had to be older than 24. We were
25.
young.
Yeah.
6. We were young. And
Mhm.
somebody younger than us was with us. If I
Yeah.
remember right. I don't know if that's true or
remember. I
not.
don't remember that.
Anyway, there
But
was
yeah,
an older
it was
lady.
fucked up. It was fucked up. We had to find a way off the strip. You couldn't taxis and
And
shit.
how did we get there? Did we take a bus?
Yeah, I vaguely remember being on some sort of train or bus or something. Ubers didn't exist. We didn't take a taxi there.
No,
So
I think
I
we
don't
took a
really
bus,
remember.
which is how we ended up at the bus station trying to get a bus back.
Yeah, and that was in fucking possible. You couldn't do it. Eventually, we got back to Mrs. Roper's house. It might have been me, but I think it was you who basically ran in front of a taxi. Like we were off
Right.
the strip. Like we were like, fuck it. On the strip, we're not getting dick. So we need to fucking get off the strip. So we like went right beyond the strip. And we were trying to flag taxis down like we were in New York City,
Right.
which
And they were
is
like,
impossible. They were giving us the bird. And I'm fairly certain this is back in the day when you had cash. We just emptied our purses of cash and we're like, just get us, please. But you
Right.
almost died. Yeah, you almost died.
I think
Because
the taxi was going to run me over. Like it had no, and then I think I held up like a handful of cash. And we shared a cab with somebody else who couldn't find a
yeah,
taxi.
I don't know. By
Horrific.
that point, it was a blur because I think it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we had literally been trying to get off the strip since midnight. We
Right.
said, Happy New Year, see ya.
Peace
And
out.
no.
I
Anyway,
think we
so
were the
that's our,
last ones to make it back too. Like,
yeah. Yeah, so we should have just I think we thought we were smarter and we were
right.
gonna get somewhere quicker, so we took
As
off from the
usual.
group. But yeah, and then we spent another night in the van. And then we drove home, and I don't think we ever saw those people again.
Um, I don't think we did.
The next day, we did go back to the strip because I remember this vividly because it was one of my best, one of the best experiences. I had zero money because I was 21, and I'd just given any bit of money that I had to the
To
taxi
the
driver.
taxi.
And we go into a casino, and I'm like, fuck, I don't have any money to fucking drink. I don't know. All right. So I find this video blackjack machine, and I sit down there and I put my last $5 in it. I think it was something like, I don't know, two, three, four, I don't know. Hours later, I walked away from that machine fucking hammered with $7. It
You're
was
like, Vegas is the best place ever.
it's fucking amazing. Do you know the next time I was able to do that?
Never.
Never, never. It just was that one lucky day I made
Magical
$2
time.
and got wasted. And I told this story before, and somebody was like, but you only made $2. I was like, I was
Doesn't matter.
hammered, drunk. Drunk.
Right.
I stood up and fell over a little bit. Drunk. So no, I made way more than $2 that day.
What would make it like what would make us run to chaos like that? What in
Yeah.
a 20-year-old's mindset is, I'm sure that'll be fine. Why would we be worried about how we're getting back to the place where we don't have a place to sleep? What?
I don't think that was we weren't thinking about any of that. We wanted
Hey,
to.
we're going to Vegas with this troop of people we don't know.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain you and I were uncomfortable for 90% of
The whole time.
and unless we were really drunk. And even then we were still a bit
Still a little bit
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. Right. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it was
hey, we have to.
but we didn't realize that Mike invited us until we were already on our way. Like
Right.
we were under the impression that we had been invited, there was a place for us to sleep, there was
There's
like
a whole plan.
yeah, we were under the impression that we were included in the planning from the start.
Hmm. Yeah.
We didn't realize until we got there that
Hey, I think we're the
yeah.
third, fourth, and fifth wheel here.
Yeah, so it was rough. Anyway, that's our New Year's story. New Year's 2000, one of the
So fun.
funniest. Yeah,
Oh
it
my
was a good
God.
time. It was a good time.
Terrifying. It is one of those ones where you look back on it and you're like, how did I end up at a bus shelter watching people do heroin while trying to
Yeah.
find a cab?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was rough. It was fucking
Right.
rough. It was
How do
very
we not
rough.
die?
Yeah.
How do we not die?
I don't
Also,
know.
think about how much easier these kids have it. They could just call their friends and be like, hey, did you find a way home? Can you stop by this
Yeah.
bus shelter? You'll know
Yeah.
it by all the crackheads. Can you pick me up?
Yeah, there was no texting asking, "Hey, where are you guys? Where were you able to find a ride?" There was nothing
Nope.
like that. Even if we could find a payphone, where the fuck are we calling anybody? We didn't know Mrs. Roper's fucking number.
We barely knew Mrs. Roper's address. I think I had
Yeah,
it written on my
that's the
hand.
other thing. Like, no, like how did we even get back? That's insane.
I wrote it
Insane.
on my hand because I didn't have a
Wow.
purse. I don't know where I
Wow.
brought cash from. Did I have it in my bra? Because I wasn't going to carry a purse and wear those heels at the same time.
I had to have a purse because I was smoking cigarettes at the time, so I always had to have a cigarette carrying receptacle.
And my feet were like hamburger meat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many blisters. New shoes, of course, because why not?
Yeah.
Whew. All right,
It was rough.
should we get into some mental wellness shit?
Yeah.
All right, finally, at this point of reading the book, I have remembered the name of the book and that the author isn't Ricky Gervais. It's The First Rule of Mastery by Michael Gervais. He doesn't pronounce the S. I don't know if you guys remember, but a few weeks ago we talked about our boy Beethoven and how he was quiet about his deafness because he was afraid that he would lose his place in society. And that was our introduction to FOPO, the fear of other people's opinions. This week, we're going to jump into part one of the book. Part one is chapters 1 through 6, and we're going to cover chapters 1 through 4 this week. There's a lot of material here up front that we're going to need as like the basis for the book later. So in the early parts here in chapter 1, MG Michael Gervais introduces the concept of FOPO. And we've talked about this one pretty extensively on the show already and also in our lives. It's in our dad's near famous top 5 rules for life. So, quick shout out to Jumbo for encouraging us all to pee before we leave. This is a different rule than that one, though. So, our dad taught us fairly early on in life that no one gives a shit about you. And although that sounds cruel and unkind and like it might provoke thoughts of sadness, isolation, and loneliness, that couldn't be further from the truth. So, FOPO, fear of other people's opinions, kept us safe in ancestral times and also in middle school. So, if anyone out there was a middle school girl, is that feeling of stressing out over whether or not to wear 3 pairs of layered scrunchy socks or if 2 would be enough to keep you in the cool group. So, these are FOPO is important because it's able to keep us a part of the herd, and our instincts make it so that we want to be part of the herd because that's how we survived years and years ago. Kind of the important thing is as we grow up and as we evolved, it's less important to be part of the herd and more important to evaluate where those thoughts are coming from. So, Michael Gervais mentions that FOPO is our cue to look at what we're thinking about and whether or not we're letting that fear of other people's opinion keep us from doing something that is important or something that lines up with our values. And the trick is that FOPO is the future looking piece of it. So it's not understanding that, oh my God, I just said something that was really out of place in this context and being able to learn from that. FOPO is the fear of saying something out of place and then not doing something that's consistent with who you are as a person. So FOPO is a lying bitch that needs kicked in the dick, is what I wrote. The
Valid.
ability to read the room is important, but it's also equally important to understand that allowing fear to control our lives is really unhealthy. So there is a big difference of valuing other people's opinions and being aware of the context in which you're speaking and letting external forces drive what you do in your day-to-day life. Bringing it back to Jumbo's advice is it's really thinking no one else is really thinking about us as much as we think they are. No one gives a shit about you isn't about other people's lack of empathy, caring, or understanding. It's about putting other people's opinions in perspective. They might look at your cold sore and pity you for a second. Oh, that's too bad. Ugh, it's so gross. But their thoughts quickly move on to what they're going to have for dinner. And why in the world would we think it is a good idea to waste our time and energy worrying about what other people might think when it's a scientific fact that they're not really thinking about you at all? So, do you remember the context in which Jumbo first gave you the advice?
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually 23. I feel like he probably tried to give me some sort of this, or both of us, this advice earlier than that. But the instance where it literally came out of his mouth as no one gives a shit about you. And I remember almost the date. It was the week before September
Huh.
11th, 2001.
Oh,
That's probably why I
wow.
remember the date. Yeah, it was wedding time. We were going to a family wedding. And my boyfriend at the time, he was my ex boyfriend at this time because he had dumped me.
Dick.
His, I mean, his loss, whatever. But yeah, so I had been dumped and it was wedding time and I wasn't going to have a date. And I was very upset about this and I was crying about it. And I was like, I can't keep going to these weddings by myself. Like everybody in the family is going to think I'm not good enough to get married. Like that I never have a boyfriend. Everybody is going to see me single and alone again. And they're going to think blah, 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 blah. And he was like, stop, just stop. And at this point, it was irritated daddy. It wasn't like, I'm going to really try to help you out and talk to you. It was shut the fuck up. Not what he said, but just stop.
Right.
Just stop.
Just
Listen to
stop.
yourself. Listen to yourself.
Huh.
Do you think anybody gives a shit about you? Nobody gives a shit about you. And I was like, oh my God, Excuse me?
That's
And he
me.
said, in this context, nobody gives a shit about you. Do you think we're going to a wedding and people are going to look at you and say, oh my God, Sarah doesn't have a date? They're not there for you. They're there for this wedding. And they're more worried about the clothes they're putting on their back or the date they don't have. So they're not thinking about you. It's not about you.
It's right.
And that was extremely powerful and still plays a huge part in my life, probably on a daily basis.
Yeah,
Because
same.
I'm like, oh God, what are they going to think? And I'm like, what? They're not, they might look at me and be like, hey, cold sore. Nice. Sorry about your luck. And then again, and then they're moving on, worried about the zit that they have on their cheek. Or
Right.
they don't
They're
even see the
worried.
cold sore. They're doing the same thing we're doing and worrying about themselves.
Yep. Like further along in this book, there's an entire set of chapters about science will tell you. This isn't just Jumbo's theory of other
Mhm.
people's thinking. There have been studies and studies. There's a really famous one with Barry Manilow, who honestly, I would go see him in concert. So, FOPO is this anticipation of the rejection. So, the fear is that if I do this or say this, somebody is going to react negatively, and your body goes through a fear response. FOPO is actual fear. And once you're in it, it's hard to get out of it. So we are constantly going through like a cycle. The mechanics of FOPO is you have the anticipation part where the best example I think that everyone can relate to is being in a meeting. And you're like, I think I have something to say. And you're like adjusting your position and you're like, I have something to say. And then as soon as you think you have something to say, you start anticipating the reaction of the other people in the meeting. And I'm like, oh, I can't say it because they're going to think I'm an idiot. Oh, I can't say it because it's probably irrelevant. I can't say it. And then you start like creating all of these scenarios for yourself. So you spend a lot of time in this kind of heightened awareness and fear of what people are going to think when you say something. And it might be a situation where you do have something important to contribute. And now you're, instead of being engaged in this meeting where you might learn something, you might be able to engage in the conversation in a way that isn't, hey, I have this best idea, look at me. You might be able to work your idea in a way that's a little more natural. You shut that part of your brain down because you literally can't pay attention to two things at one time. So instead of paying attention to the conversation and context of the meeting, you are now focused on 18 scenarios that might happen when you might speak up. So you're just in this anticipation thing for forever and ever. And then when you finally see an opportunity to jump in and yell out your idea, you've moved into like the checking phase where you're constantly scanning. If you're on a Zoom call, you're looking at the people in the Zoom call. If you're just on the phone, you're listening to reactions, interpreting everything that's happening. Everything that you're seeing, like every pause, you're interpreting that as a rejection. Your fear response is making it so that you're seeing things that may or may not be there. And you're thinking about the next phase, which is the response phase. When you're in that checking phase, you're like, okay, did I make sense? And then you move into the responding phase, which is where you either pull back your statement. Michael Gervais goes into, I think, 5 different responses when you're going through FOPO. What are they? Contort, conform, confront, critique. This is the most damaging phase because you're taking who you are, your identity, and you're making it into whatever eases the conversation from that point. Like you're so afraid of what somebody might be thinking or might be doing that you change what you're doing. You're trying to preempt a response. And you can see how dangerous this can be when we think about it in the context of bad behavior. So if you're in a group that's engaging in some bad behavior, again, going back to that 13-year-old middle school girl example, and you're like, I don't necessarily agree with what's happening, and I probably should say something that lines up with my values of being a decent human being. And you just don't, because if I do that, then Kim's not going to want to be my friend. And it's really important for me to be popular because it's the only thing I care about right now. So, it might be harmless as a 13-year-old girl until you start thinking about how frequently you see that behavior in true crime.
Right.
I know that you could probably name at least 3 examples where people have gotten murdered because other people are afraid to say anything. And I know you've been in a situation where you've thought about saying something in a meeting and you've not said it. and then you just ruminate on it for the next 5 days. Ugh, I should have said it. Why didn't I say it? I should have said it.
Or worse, when I don't say it and then somebody else does, and everybody's like, wow, what a
What
great
a great
idea.
idea.
Like,
Fuck.
motherfucker.
Each of those phases involves a cost. You can't pay attention to two things. So you're missing the point of the meeting. You're missing an opportunity to engage with someone else. You're missing an opportunity to show who you are as a person. There's an energy involved with being in this kind of loop that takes away from your ability to perform at a higher level. Chapter 2 is these are the things that are happening, and they happen all the time without you thinking about it. So what we're going to try to do in other chapters is recognize when this is happening and come up with some strategies for how to break that cycle, how to get out of that loop, and ways that we can protect ourselves from getting in that loop in the first place. There's a few fast tracks to get yourself in this loop. One of them is not understanding who you are as a person. So, this is why 13-year-old girls fall into this all the time, because you just don't know who I am as a person. And then the performance based identities. So we'll talk a ton about performance based identities here before we wrap up, but that's one of the sort of short tracks to ending up in FOPO. The chapter 3 is fear factors, and it's really all about being afraid and what sets us up to engage in this cycle. So we learn to be afraid, like Pavlov's dog. You've been afraid, right? Everyone's been afraid.
Have I been afraid?
I'm afraid right now. There's just a higher level of
It's my
stress.
natural state.
There's just a higher level of stress in the body. Not only when you're in this loop mechanics of FOPO are you taking yourself away from engaging in meaningful things that are going to happen, you're also raising your stress levels up high, and you're going to find it hard to perform if you feel like you're dying all the time. Go back to that instinct of I want to be part of the group. I don't want to be the person who is saying inappropriate things at the company dinner. I don't want to be the person who's saying old timey racist stuff. You want to be able to understand those kinds of clues. That's an adaptation that's good, that you can engage in and read the room. The problem is when it starts to encourage maladaptive behaviors. And I wrote maladaptive in capital letters because I just like
that.
it.
It is a good
Right?
word. It is a good word.
Like maladaptive behaviors are when you start to get into that FOPO cycle where you're so afraid of what's going to happen or what might happen or what crazy scenario you've built up in your head that you can't move forward. So an important distinction here is that FOPO is a non-clinical disorder. This is just shit that happens. You're not to the level of having a social anxiety disorder, which is a clinical diagnosis and might require some professional help. And he gives an example in the chapter about a baseball player who's really scared and how he went to see his therapist. And Michael Gervais is a psychologist. So he worked with him in a way that was able to draw him out of his fear. Just as a note, FOPO is something that we can work on our own. When you start to develop those maladaptive behaviors, they need to be addressed. And sometimes you need to address them with a therapist. So I will say again, you probably don't need a therapist to deal with your FOPO, but having a therapist never hurts. And right. They have some really good ideas about how to distinguish a little bit of fear of other people's opinions and a clinical diagnosis that could benefit from professional help. So I'm going to ask you a question. Should we keep going and talk about identity?
I think identity is one that we should keep for next time.
Yeah, I do too. So, what do you think about FOPO? What do you think about the mechanics of it? Did you have any thoughts as I walked through all of that?
Nothing different than what you already talked about. I find it amazing how FOPO is most likely a part of all of our lives in the most incognito way, and we don't even realize it. And being able to finally realize that this is going on and this is something that we're causing internally and that we have control over this and we can change this. And also discussing how it negatively affects us and our ability to perform to the best of our ability. I think that's something that we also don't realize. Like we might think, oh yeah, FOPO, like I probably shouldn't do that. But we're not fully thinking of the negative effects that it can have and the extent of those, and how we can change our lives for the better if we learn how to have a better grasp on the FOPO.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I found surprising was that, we toss out FOMO and FOPO, and oh, they're so cute. They're so cute. But when you really put some thought behind it, you really are taking away from your ability to engage because the fear is real. Like
Yeah.
your body's response, your body has no idea whether it's being attacked by a tiger or you're worried about speaking up in a meeting. Like the
Yeah.
reaction is the same. Cortisol levels go up, stress goes up, and you're really taking a toll on yourself that you don't have to.
It's that
And
science shit again. That's awesome.
it is pretty cool. Worrying about what people might think is hard. Like
Yeah.
worrying about what people actually think.
Yeah. It's
So
exhausting. It's exhausting.
looking ahead and understanding the ways that you can prevent that from happening is understanding that it's happening in the first place and understanding how detrimental it is to relationships that you're trying to establish, and it's going to pop up in places that you probably don't even recognize right now, and being able to tease out what's good and what's bad about being afraid of what other people think about you is an interesting thing for me. Just like everything else we're going to try to do on this podcast, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy, but that's why we're doing this. So we can do it together and help each other and help you guys.
Right, exactly. Next time, we're going to talk about identity. And I know early on in the podcast, we talk about performance based identity and a purpose driven identity and how those two can contrast and how one is potentially better than the other one. But there's also a step by step guide here to help us figure it out. You do
Awesome.
love a step by step guide. All
I
right.
do.
So we'll,
Then let's wrap it up.
all right. Happy
Sounds
Christmas
good.
break. Love you.
Yeah. And happy 2025. Here we go. Bam.
Let's make this year our bitch.
Yeah. Amen. Love you.
Love you.